2 years, I lived in the capital of a western region. 2 days ago, I moved to a small town about 50 miles away to be closer to my family and get away from the city. While it's not Skid Row or San Fran yet, there is a huge homelessness problem in the area where I used to live. There is a lot of petty crime, meth labs, and tent camps. I often passed people passed out on the sidewalks, and when my neighbor in a small 8-unit apartment building asked me one night if I wanted to go out and play, I jumped at the chance, around safely with someone else. I always thought my neighbor Steve was cute. And when he knocked on my door one night, I decided, I'm going to go and play with him. I was moving out in less than 2 weeks, and I decided to go out with him. It had been about a year since I'd known him, so I thought he'd lost a bit of his quirkiness. Steve wasn't always social. Even on the day I moved in last year, I could feel his eyes on me. He was commenting on my skateboarding, and his other neighbor, Trent, was out with Steve drinking beer and smoking cigarettes. They seemed like friends. After a few days, I started having a few beers with Steve upstairs on the landing overlooking the parking lot on the street. One day, after he had bought too many cigarettes from me, he told me I had nice legs. This was absolutely not true, and I had known the guy for less than a week. I had no intention of having a relationship with him just because he was my neighbor. It was really creepy. Then I actively avoided him until a few weeks ago. I would just wave and say hello. Let's go back to the first time he knocked on my door. We spent a few days together, and he started getting stupidly clingy. For example, if we played on Monday night, he didn't leave until Tuesday afternoon and wanted to see me again after work. I understand. We were making love and going home right afterwards. Why not? One night I ran out of cigarettes and I tried to go to the corner shop where Trent worked to buy more cigarettes. When I saw him working, without thinking I walked in and said, "Trent works there. Let's say hello." Immediately after I said that, the atmosphere changed 100% because Trent started calling Steve an asshole and asked him why he dared to come into the shop. Trent turned to me and said goodnight. "Be careful, Anna. He's a psychopath." I thought they were just bad friends. It wasn't unusual for them to fall out, and on the way to the bar, Steve ignored my questions about Trent. To be honest, I was a bit worried, so I told him if he didn't want to say anything, he could hang out on his own. It made me uncomfortable to sit quietly with someone strange. To be honest, I remember him trying to hold my hand as we left the bar. I drink too much sometimes. That's why the amount I drank was less than usual. I didn't trust this guy anymore. The next thing I remember was muttering something to someone in a well-lit place. I wasn't taking my medication, and the next thing I was in a dark hospital room. The machines were blaring. My face felt like it was on fire, so I dug through my bag and pulled out my cell phone to see what was going on. I had 2 black eyes, and one side of my face was extremely swollen. I saw that Steve had sent me a few messages, and I texted him to leave me alone. He panicked, apologized, and said he was sorry. I went to sleep thinking, I don't care, fuck it. I was discharged that morning, and the doctor gave me a lecture about alcohol. From the next day onwards, I received a lot of support. When I told my family and local friends, they wouldn't let me stay home alone. With the help of my friends, I packed everything in random boxes and arranged a moving truck. My eye was still swollen, so with the help of a friend, I moved out later that week. Another boyfriend, whose family practiced mixed martial arts at a dojo, told me that someone had hit me in the face. "Who did this to you? What was his name?" he asked. I believed him, and when I thought about it, I had no scrapes or bruises anywhere. I have back problems, so if I had fallen, I would have felt pain in my spine. On the day of the move, 4 days after I was discharged from the hospital, apparently Steve was sitting on the sidewalk watching the movers load my stuff onto the truck, and someone was loading my car. I didn't see him, and I deliberately didn't look at him. "Who was the man watching us?" the movers asked my friend. My friend told them we had to leave immediately. I think that gave them the general idea. Over the next few days, while I was moving my stuff and on the day of the truck, he kept asking how I was and said he was sorry, that he was just panicking. Before I blocked his phone number, I told him that I knew he had done this to me, or that he was at least partly responsible in some way. I've been injured many times in my college years from drinking too much, rollerblading and cycling, but I've never had an injury like this. He said he went to get a pizza and I fell. I can't believe he thought I was that stupid. Did he think I would believe that? Oh, well, whatever. I told him. Then I went to the emergency hospital because the hematoma wasn't healing and I was in a lot of pain. I asked the doctor if I really fell. He said no. No way. Especially after I showed him pictures of the wound before it was relatively healed. So I can't say for sure, but I'd rather believe the experts than some nutcase who wants to sleep with me all year round. I can imagine. Maybe if I'd told him to fuck off, he might have gotten offended. I can't say for sure because I don't remember. Nobody let me go there alone on the weekend. I left a note under Trent's door warning him about Steve and ran out of town. No one knew where I lived. Steve doesn't have a car, and I don't think I'll ever set foot in that neighborhood again. Now I'm just looking forward to recovery and new changes. In response to the question whether he was given an RPE kit at the hospital, I don't think he was. If I had, I'm sure they would have said something. As mentioned above, the only physical injuries were to my eyes and face, no other scrapes or bruises. And in case you're wondering, I used to live in Denver, so be careful and trust your instincts. When I was 16 years old and in high school, my family moved into a large split-level house. It had a balcony and everything, which was pretty cool for my 16-year-old personality. When I moved in, I didn't think I had roommates because there was still a for rent sign hanging next door. I wanted a window in my room so I could see half the house through it. Don't ask me why, but I thought it was weird and cool. I liked it. I wanted to see if anything weird would happen. After I got settled, my friend came in. I was in my room mixing lip gloss with sugar and syrup from the kitchen when she turned around and started asking me, "Hey, I thought you didn't have roommates yet." I turned around and saw a man's face outside the window. We rushed out of the room and grabbed my brother, who was a year younger than me. When we came back, he was gone and the window was slightly raised. This panicked me because we were not sleeping in that room, even though I begged him to make it his room. The next morning, when I told my mother, she immediately took Seven and me in our pajamas to the other door. Mom must have thought we were smoking drugs in my room. The last time I knocked on the door, someone came out. She was a small Mexican woman. We didn't mention the man at the window, but she immediately asked us for a favor, and I accepted. I knew how she felt, but Seven was hesitant. The next morning on the way to school, we were shocked and surprised to meet her son, the same man we had seen the night before. He was wearing a thick green raincoat even though it was extremely hot. He had curly brown hair and big eyes. His eyes were very far apart. On the way to school, he kept playing with my hair and sniffing it. Soon he became strange. He wouldn't leave me alone. As much as I hated to admit it, I reconsidered being nice to him. Our schedules were very different, but he was always in my classes. He even kept 7 people away from me, so we were isolated. She sat with the kids at lunch and told them lies about me and about herself. He said I asked him out, or that he tried to break down my door, or that he held my hand as we walked home. At first, it was a very small thing. I stopped letting her follow me, and that's when it got serious. He started walking down the hallway behind me and Seven, recording my ass and telling me he was going to fuck me and race me with holy balls. Seven got fed up, turned around, and yelled at him. He stopped for a while. But one day, while Seven and I were playing with friends, he appeared outside the restaurant and strolled up to us. I told him my legs were tired, but all I heard was a loud stomping sound, and he got down on his knees and told me to put my feet up. I left immediately and went home. That night, I put a sheet over the window in my room. It was after his mother came to tell us that he hadn't come home. I remember the scariest thing. I woke up to 10 texts. The last one was, "Yell footstool, I'm coming out." I swear I could hear him breathing. He was breathing like an angry dog, I cried and screamed until my mom came and begged her to let me out of the room. While I was crying and shaking, my father and brother pulled him out from under the bed. He looked at me and smiled. The next month we moved, and I slept with my parents for months because I was so scared.